Hello everybody, I'm Stormtracker16 meteorologist Anthony Bordenaro. We've been having a blast sharing our favorite weather topics with you, things you can use in everyday life, and this week is no exception. We have another show loaded with something from everybody on our Stormtracker16 weather team. To get things started, I'm introducing a new segment called The Rundown, something you can support in your area. Well, if you know me, you know I like to run, but the segment's not about me, it's about you. It's about the local 5K, walk, bicycle ride, having positive impacts across Northeast and Central Pennsylvania. We're kicking off the first week with a big issue across Northeast Pennsylvania, the problem of hunger. I took a behind-the-scenes look at Breadbasket of Northeast Pennsylvania, and I want to show you what work they're doing.
As you can see, we are down to nothing until next week.
This is all that remained after the weekly food giveaway at Elm Park United Methodist Church in downtown Scranton. The fruit is gone, a few grains remain, and proteins are starting to run out.
I only had like a dozen milk today.
Really?
Nothing like that.
On a good day, these shelves are fully stocked, but we're just finishing with today's pantry hours. And as you can see, we have been wiped out.
Maria Santomaro is the executive director of Breadbasket of Northeast Pennsylvania. The nonprofit has 7 locations across our area and served nearly 30,000 residents in 2025 alone.
It's not really great to see those high numbers, but it is really great that we are able to help that many.
Obviously you're helping people, but to see these shelves, like what's going through your mind when, like at the end of every week when you see?
Well, I could tell you how I felt 20 minutes ago when we still had a handful of people left and we're looking at bare shelves and we're just like, it's basically, I hope we can just get through the next few minutes so that, everyone can go home, that nobody's going home empty-handed. I want to reiterate too, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, that we're 99.9% volunteer run. So actually, I'm the executive director, I'm the only staff person with Breadbasket of NEPA. So all of our 7 pantries are managed and operated and run by volunteers, wonderful, dedicated volunteers that come every week.
Rosemary Bohenick is the president of the board of directors at Breadbasket. She came up with the idea to organize a race in order to raise money to support the cause.
Every penny raised at the Breadbasket Bolt will go towards feeding our neighbors here in Lackawanna County. We've seen the need grow ever since the SNAP benefits got cut a few years back, and then those were reinstated, but it seems like we've kept the current clientele that we have.
The Breadbasket Bolt is set for Saturday, May 16th at 9 a.m., winding through the Lackawanna Heritage Trail. It includes both a 5K and a 10K, as well as a 2-mile walk.
It's all walks of life that are needing food, and you would be surprised. It's people who are working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet, and they're doing their best but still falling short. And if anything, we can help them put food on the table.
If you'd like to participate, you can sign up until race day. To find out more information on how to register, visit WNEP.com. So hopefully you enjoyed that behind-the-scenes look at Breadbasket of Northeast Pennsylvania, but there are more things happening this weekend that I want to share with you. The first one I want to talk about is the 2nd annual Climb Mount Pocono event. This one is to benefit cancer. It's a 3-mile walk. You can walk this one, and it starts at 8 o'clock. Next one I want to talk about is Harvey's Lake Run. It has a $200 cash prize. If you think you're fast enough, go for it. But it's an 8.2-mile run. It starts at 8:30 there at Harvey's Lake. Next, I want to talk about the Armed Forces 5K in downtown Scranton. It's just over 3 miles, and it starts at 9 o'clock, and it benefits first responders. You'd love to see that. Next, what I want to talk about is the Fine Arts 5K in Kingston. It precedes Sony Shine, that helps youth cognitive issues there with kindergartners to 3rd graders, so that's a good cause there. That starts at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Fleetville in Lackawanna County, they have a Hometown Heroes 5K. It starts at 10 o'clock, and proceeds go to help Hometown Heroes scholarships in the area. And then finally, what I want to talk about, this one is on Sunday, but it's a race in memorial of Jen Steck. It's a 5.3-mile run. The top 15 finishers earn a medal, and it starts at 11 o'clock. So yeah, that was this edition of the Rundown. Hopefully, there's a lot of events this weekend. Hopefully you can find one of them that suits you. And if you're not, just get active. Remember to head outside this weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. I know we are always looking for new things for you to do and new ways for you to learn. So keep coming back. Up next, Kurt and Allie take on a season that's just ramping up for our area. Stormtracker16 Cloud to Ground returns back in a minute. Welcome back to Cloud to Ground. I'm Anthony Bordenaro. What does severe weather season look like in our area? Allie Gallo takes a look at what we've experienced and what we could expect in this week's edition of Historic Allie.
Severe weather can happen any day or time of the year, but here in Pennsylvania, we see the most severe weather during the spring and summer months. Thunderstorms can produce damaging wind gusts, frequent lightning, torrential downpours, hail, and sometimes even tornadoes. Then as we get into the summer months, hurricane season creates flooding threats of a different kind. Let's take a look at our severe weather risks here in Pennsylvania. Thunderstorms are more common during the spring because it's the time of year we have the most amount of instability. Warm, moist air and colder, dry air clash during spring months, and that contrast is the perfect fuel for thunderstorms. Meteorologists with the National Weather Service issues watches and warnings, and here in northeastern and central PA, we actually have 3 different forecast offices covering our area. The National Weather Service out of Binghamton, New York, covers our northeastern counties, including the Scranton and Wilkes-Barre areas. The forecast office out of State College covers central Pennsylvania, and the forecast office in Mount Holly, New Jersey, technically the Philadelphia office, covers the Poconos. Watches are issued if conditions are favorable for severe weather to develop and can be issued up to 6 hours in advance. Warnings are issued if severe weather is forming or happening. Severe thunderstorms, by definition, have winds over 58 miles per hour and hail greater than 1 inch in diameter. Sometimes a strong or severe thunderstorm is capable of producing a tornado. Tornado warnings are just about the only weather-related reason we will break into regularly scheduled programming to bring viewers wall-to-wall coverage. If the wind changes in speed or direction abruptly within a thunderstorm updraft, the updraft can start to rotate and a funnel cloud will form. When the funnel cloud is on the ground is when it officially becomes a tornado. In 2017, a rare February tornado passed right over the WNEP building. It was later determined to be an EF2 tornado. It touched down near Bald Mountain Road in Plains Township at 2:35 that afternoon and was on the ground for about 15 minutes or 12.8 miles, finally lifting off the ground north of Lake Scranton. But earlier that day, it was sunny with temperatures in the 60s. A year later, in 2018, another EF2 tornado ripped through a major shopping area in Wilkes-Barre Township, damaging several stores in the Arena Hub Plaza. The severe thunderstorm definition does not include heavy rain or lightning. As we head into the summer months, this is a good reminder that there is no such thing as heat lightning. You are just seeing faint flashes from a thunderstorm that is too far away to hear thunder. But if you do hear thunder, you are close enough to the storm to be struck by lightning. So it may be a cliche, but if thunder roars, get indoors. A severe thunderstorm warning won't be issued for heavy rain, but a flash flood warning can be. Flash flooding is caused by torrential downpours over a very short time. That is more common during summertime thunderstorms. We saw devastating flash flooding in September 2023. On Saturday, September 9th, heavy rain from severe storms prompted several flash flood warnings. 20 roads in Lackawanna, Luzerne, and Wyoming counties were closed due to flooding and damage, and several homes and businesses struggled with major loss and damage too. Dozens of people were trapped in their cars on Northern Boulevard in South Abington Township that night, and for days we heard countless rescue stories. 2 people died as a result of the flash flooding. The Clark Summit area was hardest hit, recording more than 4 inches of rain in under 7 hours that day. Another type of flooding is river flooding, which is longer term and happens gradually over several hours or even during the span of several rain events. Meteorologists with the National Weather Service say it only takes about 6 inches of water to knock you down, about a foot will float most vehicles, and 2 feet of water can carry cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks away.
Hurricane season, which is technically from June 1st to November 30th,
presents a different kind of severe weather threat. Peak hurricane season isn't until later in the summer and early fall when ocean temperatures are much warmer. If you were alive and lived here, you of course remember the flooding of 1972. That was from Hurricane Agnes. In more recent times, in 2011, Tropical Storm Lee once again brought devastating rain and flooding to the Wyoming Valley. Forecasters are predicting a slightly below average hurricane season this year, with 13 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 2 major hurricanes. Memorial Day weekend is the unofficial start to summer, although it usually takes a little bit longer for Mother Nature to get on board. Next week, we'll take a look at what the weather typically looks like for Memorial Day weekend here in northeastern and central Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me this week. I'm Allie Gallo.
Thanks, Allie. Severe weather is on the minds of our kids, too. Up next, the next pondering for Kurt Aaron from the mouths of our children.
Hi, I'm Chief Meteorologist Kurt Aaron, and welcome back to science class. Now, you may remember last week, Ben asked this very question.
I wanted to know how are hurricanes formed?
Now, that is a great question. I mean, look at that right there. Just how do hurricanes get so big? Did you know that a Category 5 hurricane can be 10 miles high and over 1,000 miles wide? How is that even possible? Well, we have to start with looking towards the south, the equator, and how warm the water is down there. Let's check it out. Now, in order to answer that question, we're coming here to the big board. Look at the size of this hurricane. This thing is massive. But how does it get this big? Well, we talked about the equator, remember? The fact that we need warmer water. Well, that's the fuel. And when you get down near the equator, that's where the water temperature is right around 80 degrees. Those are the perfect conditions to start forming a tropical system. And then the engine needed is called lift, rising air, and that's what we're seeing here. But what about the spin? Where does that come from? The spin comes from the Earth's rotation, and that's what helps create a hurricane. Now we're going to go back to the severe weather set and go a little bit more in depth. So a hurricane just doesn't form as a hurricane. It starts off as a tropical depression. From a tropical depression, it then becomes a tropical storm. Now, once the wind speeds that you see here are more than 73 miles an hour, once they hit 74, then it technically becomes a hurricane. Now, with all the ingredients that we just talked about on the big screen over there, all of this has to work in unison in order to create a hurricane. Now, if you look at this chart, you can see the height of our hurricane season is right around the beginning of September as we head into October. You may not realize that. I know we're getting into fall there, but that's actually the height. That's when we see most of our tropical storms and our hurricanes. We're only in May right now, so we're not anywhere near that. And when does hurricane season run? Well, it runs from June 1st to guess how late? I'll give you a minute to think about it. November 30th. That's how long hurricane season in the Atlantic runs. So, Ben, thank you for your question. We appreciate it very much, and I hope this answers how hurricanes are made. Oh, and one last thing before we go, here's a question for next week.
What would happen if there was a sandstorm and a rainstorm at the same time?
All right, guys, class over. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Kurt. Stick with us, because Jeremy Lewan has an artistic look of rain from pictures from viewers like you. We'll be right back on Stormtracker16, Cloud to Ground. Welcome back to Cloud to Ground. I'm Anthony Bordenaro. Jeremy Lewan loves using your photos to appreciate weather and weather phenomena. This week, rain takes the center stage. Here's Jeremy.
Every week, the weather tells a story, and sometimes the best way to see that story is through your eyes. Welcome back to This Week in Weather, where your photos help tell the story of the skies above us. We take a look back at the past with photos sent in by viewers just like you, right here on The Plus. From dramatic skies to quiet, beautiful moments, these snapshots capture what it truly felt like to live through this week's weather. And as we go, we'll do more than just admire the view. We'll break down what's actually happening behind the scenes, turning some of those complex weather phenomena into easy to understand science. So let's get started with this incredible shot from Frank Saponsik from Shavertown. Now he is from Shavertown, but he took this picture at Francis Slocum State Park. And he says that this is raindrops, courtesy of nature. That's what he said on his submission. And you can see here the pitter-pattering of raindrops on Francis Slocum Lake in Wyoming. It captures a really special moment that's hard to grasp with your eyes. These are raindrops mid-fall and mid-kerplunk in the lake. But there's more going on here than what meets the eye. We often picture raindrops shaped like teardrops. That's what you see in cartoons or in coloring books, but did you know in reality raindrops actually fall more like tiny squished spheres, almost like hamburger bun shaped. As they tumble through the atmosphere, smaller droplets collide and merge and grow in a process that meteorologists call collision coalescence, growing heavier until gravity pulls them down. And the story doesn't end when they hit the ground. When a raindrop strikes a puddle, or a lake in this case, it briefly forms a crown-like splash and sends a tiny bead springing back upward, like a quick rebound against gravity, which Frank captured beautifully here. So even in a quiet rain, there's a whole world of motion and physics playing out one drop at a time. Now I'll always end this segment with a photo or two that made me smile, and I want you to take a look at this. First, I want to highlight this picture by Mary in Dallas, who captured some raindrops beating on her newly emerging hostas. These hostess leaves are hydrophobic. Now that's just a scientific term for water repelling. There's a natural waxy coating on the surface of the leaves, and the leaf's surface prevents the water from spreading, causing it to bead up like this into shimmering droplets that often sit on top of the leaf, particularly in shady conditions, because if it were sunny conditions, it would cause more evaporation. Now I have a second photo here. This one came from Rich, just down to the south. This is from Latimer, also in Luzerne County, and it's very pretty. He says, raindrops are nature's jewelry for us to enjoy. And I think that's a beautiful poetic line. Thank you, Rich, for sending in this picture. It really does look like jewelry on the tulips. So really beautiful picture of a fresh tulip blossom and its new jewelry. You can see here each drop clinging delicately to the petals, catching the light almost like tiny glass beads. And after all that movement in the sky with the collision and the coalescence, this is the calm that follows, the softer side to the story, beauty in the stillness left behind by the rain. And that's a look back at this week in weather, captured through your lens in moments, in colors, and in skies right from where you are. Keep those photos coming because you never know, you might see your snapshot featured right here next week. I can't wait to see what you send in. I'm Jeremy Luan.
Thanks, Jeremy. Don't go anywhere. Our very own Joe Snedeker and Mindy Ramsey wrap things up with the distinction most of us struggle with. Stormtracker16 Cloud to Ground returns in a moment. Welcome back to Stormtracker16 Cloud to Ground. Joe Snedeker takes a look at some temperature terminology that may confuse the most weather-savvy viewer. Joe, you're up.
Alrighty, folks, look who's here.
Hi. I don't know anything about weather.
Yes! That's why you're here, because a lot of folks don't. Look at this question from Chris Smith.
Okay.
Why do some meteorologists mention the relative humidity instead of the dew point? Chris from 44.
Good question, Chris.
Yeah, but so many people, they hate the dew point.
I hate the dew point.
And they don't understand relative humidity. So we're going to get it all down in your brain right now.
I have relatives. It's different, right?
Well, it is, but it isn't. When you're relative to something, you mean it depends on something else. Very good. All right, so here's the deal. I want you to think for the rest of your life as warm air is a bigger container. Okay. Cold air is a smaller container.
Okay.
The water I have in here is water vapor in the air. All right, so tell me about the water vapor in the air that's in this smaller cold container. It's filled up to the what?
It's filled up to the top.
100%. So in this case, we would say the relative humidity is 100%, meaning this container, which is cold, is filled to the max. Okay. Let me put this same amount of water in the warmer air.
Oh. Well, I don't think this is going to be full.
Now it's only half filled.
The glass is half full.
Same amount of water, warm air can hold more water vapor. So here's where it all is going to make sense. The relative humidity in this warm air is 50%, but yet in this it was
100%.
same amount of what?
Same amount of
Water. Isn't that unique? So in the morning when the air is cold, it usually saturates, and we say the relative humidity is 100%. The temperature and the dew point are the same. And then later in the day when the temperature warms up, the amount of water in the air is the same the whole time. But because warm air can hold more water vapor than cold air, the relative humidity goes down. But it's really the same amount of water vapor the whole time.
So that's why the relative humidity
Goes down in the afternoon. The dew point stays the same. The dew point would be like the actual amount of water in the air.
Oh.
That's why we like to give the dew point, because it tells really the true nature of how much moisture is in the air. Warm air can hold more. Relative humidity goes down. That same amount of water in here. Saturation, same amount of water. Relative humidity 50%. Relative humidity when it was in here 100%. Does this make sense?
It makes sense.
Are you just saying that?
Sort of.
Keep your questions coming. Weather@WNEP.com.
I get it. Cold air, warm air. Can you drink the relative humidity?
Thanks, Joe and Mindy. Hopefully that clears a few things up. The entire Stormtracker16 weather team hopes you learned something today, or at least had a little bit of fun. Join us each week for a new episode of Stormtracker16 Cloud to Ground. Thank you for joining us on the free WNEP app. We are proud to serve.